we are willing to hear your presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's good to see you, Gianni. Here we go. All right, you see that in full screen? Can you confirm that you hear me and see my slide?
It works, yes.
Yes, go on.
Excellent. All right. All right, well, hello everyone. It's morning time here in Alaska, and so I wish you all a good evening there in Europe and around the world. I want to first thank you all for coming today and listening to my presentation. It's been 6 years since I was first invited to speak at the first Ecoacoustics conference in Paris. And at that time, I hadn't yet finished my doctoral work, but I had felt an overwhelming amount of acceptance and support that I was given by Almo Farina, Bernie Krause, David Menaki, Jerome Seward, and Stuart Gage at the time. These scientists were the founders of this entirely new science called ecoacoustics that has now become one of the fastest growing fields in ecology today. I was privileged to have Stuart Gage as my mentor while I diligently worked 5 long years on my dissertation studying the ecology of a winter soundscape in South Central Alaska. And it didn't take long for Stuart and me to become close friends as we spoke monthly on solving new scientific problems in the emerging field of soundscape ecology. Stuart passed away on June 19, 2019. This Ecoacoustics Congress is dedicated to Stuart and his legacy, and I was given the honor by Almo and other close friends and colleagues of Stuart to give a presentation in memory of him. I cannot speak to the grandeur of all that Stuart had accomplished in his life and the impact he had on the world, but rest assured it is impressive. To give a and we are all here today because of him. I am here today because of him. So I wanted to share with you a short story of how Stuart personally and professionally impacted my life through the lens of the science we have done together. Back in 2008, I was accepted into the graduate program at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where I obtained project funding through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to conduct a study on the ecological effects of snowmobiles on the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge. From the beginning, the refuge and I wanted to emphasize this new idea to study these anthropogenic effects through sound and to create a map of these sounds across a 9,000 square kilometer wilderness. The refuge was an ideal study area because it contains nearly every ecosystem known in Alaska, all located in one unique special spot on the Kenai Peninsula. But at this time, there was really no scientific methodology to study and map sounds in Alaska. The U.S. National Park Service had created their own soundscape program a few years before, but their objectives, methods, and technologies were not well suited for conducting a spatially explicit study over winter in remote areas of Alaska. Without much help, I tried their methods anyway, hauling around 40-kilogram Pelican containers with full-size car batteries and super expensive sound level meters, only to realize that sub-freezing temperatures prevented these $5,000 devices from working, and high wind events created an almost continuous recording period when meters were triggered to record for sound events above 70 decibels. I had only been able to afford 3 of these sound meters, and on one occasion, a bear emerging from its winter den in springtime took the liberty of eating one of my $3,000 microphones, and I didn't even get a recording of the tragic event out of the deal. That first winter season was a nightmare. The data were useless, and I had to chalk those 5 long, cold, and snowy months of hard work as a learning experience. I had little hope at the time that I would figure this project out. It came to my attention in early 2011 that Brian Pijanowski and others were publishing a special issue in Bioscience introducing the field of soundscape ecology to the world. I was ecstatic. I just spent the last few years feeling alone in the abyss of confusion and uncertainty in a basement, and I finally found a group of scientists on an author line that were smarter than me and had created a foundational framework and methodologies to study this emerging new idea. So I contacted Brian, who is very supportive of my work, and he got me in contact with Stuart Gage, who was just retiring from Michigan State at the time. Stuart and I had a great connection almost immediately. He had obviously done an exceptional amount of science across a myriad of fields before, and soundscape ecology had become his pet project and core focus in his final years at the university. Looking back now, I think he was probably very excited to take this branch of science to the wilderness of Alaska, and he must have sensed something positive in me for him to commit to mentoring me for the next 3 or 4 years during his retirement while I finished my dissertation. Stuart introduced me to the much smaller and lighter and cold-tolerant SM2 song meters from Wildlife Acoustics, lending me 6 of his own while I purchased 20 more. I was then able to sample 26 locations at any given time, and by the end of winter 2013, I had sampled 62 locations across that 9,000 square kilometers of Alaska's remote wilderness. Stuart and I quantified these data with his soundscape power method, which cleverly takes the sound energy within a spectrogram and partitions it at 1 kilohertz frequency intervals so that you can calculate the amount of sound energy being emitted within a specific frequency spectrum. However, we unfortunately discovered that many sound sources, including wind and natural quiet, occupied similar frequency intervals as snowmobile noise and other technophonies. I had collected over 150,000 one-minute recordings at the time, and I couldn't fully rely on the generalization that soundscape power within the 1 to 2 kilohertz frequency interval was solely technophony. Fortunately, we were not left with an unsolvable problem. Stuart had created one of the first soundscape storage and analysis platforms on the web called the Remote Environmental Assessment Laboratory Sound Library. With the brilliance of Eric Kasten, they had developed a coding method for sound recordings with similar soundscape power values across frequency spectra. This allowed me to select specific sound recordings with known sound sources, query my entire data set on the web, and download all the recordings in my database with these same codes. This subsample produced 65,000 recordings across 62 unique spatial locations, all of which contain known recordings of snowmobile noise, biophony, geophony, and periods of natural quiet. But I had to determine which of these 65,000 recordings actually fell within these categories. So I hired a team of dedicated interns to listen to each of these recordings and identify all sounds within them, making my data set extremely accurate. Once the known sound sources were identified and were accompanied by their soundscape power values, Stuart and I were able to get to the real work of analyzing these data. In 2013, the number of published works on soundscape ecology were slowly trickling in, and the techniques of reporting and graphically representing results were still pretty diverse. Stuart had a simple solution to this too. Stuart and Ann Axel had just finished their analysis of a soundscape study they did in Michigan, and with it, they presented their results in a very clear and concise way that was easy to interpret and analyze. Stuart invited me to come stay at his home for a week in East Lansing, Michigan, to teach me the analytical tools I would need to apply these methods to my own data. We spent the better part of a day analyzing data and talking about results, and then spent the rest of our time drinking wine with his lovely wife, Pat, in deep and friendly conversations about life, happiness, and the future of soundscape ecology. I spent the next year crunching data and working to generate spatial models of soundscape power of biophony, geophony, and technophony in relationship to land cover variables using machine learning. This allowed me to create these beautiful maps of soundscape components across the entire Kenai National Wildlife Refuge, just like I had imagined from the beginning. Stuart and I published these findings in the Journal of Landscape Ecology in 2016, which has since been cited about 9 times a year and has been accessed 1,195 times. In 2014, my advisor, Falk Hutman, was the conference organizer of the US chapter of the International Association of Landscape Ecology being hosted in Anchorage, Alaska. He asked me to put together a symposium on soundscape ecology. With Stuart's help, he introduced me to the great Almo Farina, who almost instantly became my good friend and a wonderful supporter of my work. Almo and I conducted a wonderful symposium, and in the process, we began a close friendship discussing philosophies and theories around ecoacoustics, and he graciously invited me to present my work from Alaska at that first ecoacoustic conference in Paris. These exceptional experiences intensely motivated me in 2014 to finish my dissertation, which I did at the end of the year. But I was also very anxious to begin working on other things that were much more interesting than the banal issues surrounding snowmobiles in Alaska. Over the next year or so, Almo, Stuart, and I began working closely on a groundbreaking idea called the acoustic habitat hypothesis. We discovered that hundreds of articles alluded to the idea that sound-dependent species were selecting habitats based on acoustic characteristics, but no one had yet compiled this literature and brought it together under one common ecoacoustics theory. The acoustic habitat hypothesis postulates that sound-dependent species not only select habitats based on their physical attributes, but they also select habitats based on close environmental acoustic relationships that create specific acoustic conditions in particular habitats that are also vital to a species' survival. Almo, Stuart, and I published this article in Biosemiotics in 2017 with me as lead author, which has since been accessed 2,102 times and is cited about 10 times a year. Springer also highlighted this article as one of the most influential papers of the year in 2017, and it currently ranks within the 70th percentile of articles of a similar age across all journals. I encourage you all to check it out, and if you need a free copy, just let me know. About the same year, Stuart and Almo invited me to write a paper in the first book on ecoacoustics, where I outlined the spatial modeling methodology that I used with Stuart to model the spatial distributions of sounds in the landscape. And I discovered that, that others could use this same methodology to repeat it in their own part of the world. About 6 months after I was hired as the ecologist for Kenai Fjords National Park in Seward, Alaska in 2017, I started working on a long-term soundscape study to look at the seasonality of a subarctic soundscape and the phenology of biophony in the wake of climate change and glacier retreat. After I collected my data and started the analysis, I actually engaged with Stuart again in early May 2019 to ask for his help discerning the problematic areas of rain and wind in the interpretation of his normalized difference soundscape index. And in short time, Stuart replied with another useful set of ways to approach this issue. He emailed me a response on May 7th, 2019, which actually happened to be 1.5 months before he passed away. Stuart never indicated to me he was sick, and he never faltered in his passion and support to help me in my work, even at the end. Bernie Krause sent me a personal message on June 21st that year, notifying me that Stuart was gone. It was a big surprise to me, and it was a personal crushing loss that has taken me a long time to process. I often reflect on the incredible gifts Stuart gave to me. He opened my life he opened my life and my world to the beautiful symphonies of sound and nature, and as a result, he changed the way I perceive and experience the world for the rest of my life. He taught me not just how to observe these phenomena, but how to study them, analyze them, and share them among my peers. Since Stuart and I first met, I have given countless presentations around the US and the world on soundscapes in Alaska. I earned my PhD specializing in soundscapes and soundscape ecology, and I have contributed 5 papers to the field of ecoacoustics with one on the way. I have gained full-time employment with the US National Park Service, where I'm currently working on 2 innovative soundscape studies, with one focused on how biophony has responded to the reduction of human activity in a subarctic national park during the COVID-19 pandemic. Among these exceptional professional opportunities and accomplishments, I have become friends with Almo Farina and Bernie Krause, 2 people I really looked up to, and they were leading soundscape ecologists in the world. But more notably, they're 2 wonderful human beings. I have also discovered parts of me I never knew existed, and I would definitely not be the person I am today without Stuart. Losing Stuart has been hard for me and many of us who knew and with him. Although his loss has been difficult, it has also been a primary source of inspiration to me. Every time I apply the innovative methods he created and every time I cite his name in my own work, it brings the flood of memories of how significant his impact on my life has been. It also reminds me of something Stuart continuously emphasized to me on many personal conversations. He would say with his wine glass in hand, you know, us old guys are not going to be around forever. It is up to people like you to carry on this work. Stuart was a brilliant man. He was a talented visionary who helped create an entirely new science and a new way for us to observe, measure, analyze, and interpret the natural world. His mark on my work and his contribution to ecoacoustics in the world is ever present and always will be. It is his legacy. For me, I am more than blessed to have such a wonderful, gentle, and compassionate human being in my life. He was a man I admired to no end. He believed in me when I couldn't find a way to believe in myself. He led me out of the darkness of uncertainty and into the light where I can now confidently carry on his work. And judging by the 360 participants and 67 speakers at this year's conference, it is obvious we are all on the same path that Stuart has laid before us. Thank you very much.
Tim, I thank you very much for your presentation about Stuart. We miss him. He was an inspiration for everyone. And now we have time for a few questions. If someone wants to add something about maybe his relationship with Stuart or ask something to you or whatever. So the discussion is open. If someone wants to say something, is welcome. Bernie, I'm sure
here.
you have a lot of things to say.
Yeah, come on, Bernie.
Tim, that was a great presentation, and Stuart deserves every word and kindness that you've offered. I think that we all have a lot to learn from what he's done and what he's contributed to this field. And I, for one, took in every word that you said on this. So thank you.
That means a lot, Bernie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It's an honor.
Thanks to you. From more than 500 people attending this conference, that is an exceptional number of people interested in ecoacoustics, that also means bioacoustics, but also means ecology, it also means ethology. So ecoacoustics is a very interdisciplinary science where anyone can find his niche to do something and to explore. Almo?
Yeah, I'm really grateful to Tim for this presentation, especially because he has depicted perfectly the profile of Stuart Gage that I know later in my life, in his life. I think that often in our congresses, in the scientific congresses, we are all engaged in presenting new novelties, new things, and enter into the competition for this or for that. I think that our society is like a big family, a large family in which it is important the personal feeling between people, because we are working on sound, and sound is very close to sound, to soul, to the spirit. And I think that it's important to maintain in our society such a type of footprint and to make consideration on the people that we have lost only physically, but not culturally. So this is important contribute. Thanks, Dean, for this.
Okay, thanks for your words. Jérôme?
Yes, it was in the same way. Just something very similar to what Anno just said. That actually science is not only a matter of numbers, of methods, of techniques, of tools, of anything you like, but it's really a matter of a friendship and of human relationships. And science works with humans, and it's clear in this talk. And so it's a very emotional talk, and thank you very much, Tim. Science, again, is based on human and not only on numbers, as sometimes it could appear outside of the labs. And the labs works with the human people. And so thank you very much again.
Okay, I think it is time